Hi, Andrew McNair here today to talk to you about tithing. There's a lot of controversy around this subject. Should you tithe? Isn't it just an Old Testament thing? Did Jesus even say anything about tithing? If you're skeptical or on the fence about tithing or just not sure where to begin, I'm here to walk you through what the Bible actually says about tithing. So let's get started. So first thing, where does this idea of tithing come from? It actually is really early in the Bible. The first recorded tithe in history starts in Genesis 14, where Abraham gives a tenth of his spoil to the king of Salem, and who was a priest, and some say a Christophany, some say Jesus himself. Tithing was a means of worship that was carried down through Jewish tradition and ultimately put into Mosaic law, where you'll see it in Leviticus, which is everyone's favorite book, am I right? Says a tithe, in which means a tenth of everything from the land, whether grain from the soil or fruit from the trees, belongs to the Lord. It is holy to the Lord, to be set apart. And quick trivia question for you. Did the Israelites actually give only a tenth? Actually, the answer is no. They were actually giving over and above that amount. If you include their offerings and special gifts at the festivals, biblical scholars actually calculate and believe that Israelites gave as much as 23% of their income and resources. So now that we have an Old Testament understanding, or a brief one at that, when we look at the tithe in the New Testament, sadly many Christians believe that once Jesus arrived on the scene, he will abolish the law so that tithing is no longer mandatory. But this couldn't be further from the truth. As we know, Jesus came not to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. Jesus mentions tithing when he actually accuses the Pharisees of tithing out of legalism and obeying the letter of the law while neglecting the spirit of the law. And we see that in Matthew 23:23, which says, "For you are careful to tithe even the tiniest income from your herb gardens, but you ignore the more important aspects of the law, justice, mercy, and faith. You should tithe, yes, but do not neglect the more important things." Jesus turns our understanding of giving on its head and makes it not only an act of obedience, but a heart issue as well. Fast forward a few years, in first century Rome, many members of the early church lived in what we would consider abject poverty. Yet the book of Acts tells us how the first Christians took the tithe a step further and sacrificially gave to the needy and to spread the gospel. They gave out of the overflow of their changed hearts. They didn't merely stop at the tithe. This is in marked contrast to today, the 21st century, where many historians believe we have more excess and more abundance than ever before in history. Yet many Christians are more reluctant to give than even people that were in the Great Depression. If anything, we should be more giving than the early church, more giving to those grandparents of ours in the Great Depression. Given these scriptures, we could go as far as to say that the tenth is the floor. It's the minimum we should be giving. The tenth is just a start. So why tithe? Why do it? I have a video coming out on this topic shortly, so be on the lookout. I'll just say it here, though, that you should tithe not because 10% is God's, but because 100% is God's. And you're accountable to him for how you spend your money and your resources. So I challenge you to step out in faith, because that's what it will require. Faith and obedience to tithe the full 10% of your gross income to your local church. You can give this as a weekly, a monthly, or even a yearly gift, but start giving today. If you want to learn more about my journey from greedy to generosity and hear my personal story, get a copy of my book, The Giving Crisis, and you can pre-order it by clicking the link below and be one of the first to have a copy of it. Also, be on the lookout for my next video on why you should tithe. And I want to thank you for watching. If you like this video, be sure to click the subscribe button so that you can learn more tangible tools to tithe more today. And check out my podcast as well, Rich, Young, and Powerful, on iTunes and other podcast platforms to hear from philanthropists that will really encourage you on your walk towards generosity and giving. Until next time, remember to invest your life into something that will outlive it. Now that's living to give.